Welcome to a realm where personal growth meets expansive spirituality and where we're not just scratching the surface. We're diving deep, widening our perspectives, and having a darn good time doing it. This is the Enlightened Podcast, and I am your host, Jen Hamilton. You'll enjoy an infusion of motivation, empowerment, and inspiration that will resonate in every aspect of your life. Expect captivating stories, heartfelt musings, and my own personal experiences. But that's not all. I'm bringing awe-inspiring individuals to the table, so get ready to meet some remarkable souls whose wisdom and stories will leave you spellbound. No topic is off limits here. Brace yourself for raw authenticity, unfiltered vulnerability, and yes, the occasional splash of explicit language. We're delving into the realms of the esoteric, mystical, and the woo-woo, unafraid to explore the extraordinary. So if you are ready to venture beyond the surface, to explore the depths of your soul, and to awaken the magic of life, if your heart says yes, then hit that play button and let the Enlightened Podcast guide you on this remarkable expedition. Hello and welcome to another episode of the Enlightened Podcast. I'm your host, Jen, and my special guest today is Jeni Holla. Jeni is a native Floridian who embraces her true calling as a transformative energy healer, Akashic Records guide, and Soul Activator. Jeni's unique approach to personal transformation revolves around energetics, soul frequency, and alignment. She supports conscious leaders and spiritual entrepreneurs who are yearning to activate self-trust, strengthen their intuition, and align to their highest timeline. You can often find her outdoors, grounding and connecting with nature. When her nomadic journey leads her near mountains, she'll be out hiking the trails and absorbing the mountain's potent energy. Jeni is such an incredible soul, so much wisdom to share. I know you're going to love this episode. So without further ado, let's dive in. Hello, Jeni. Welcome to the Enlightened Podcast. How are you today?
I am really good, and I have been waiting for this for what feels like a really long time.
It has been a long time. It's been a hot minute.
For real and not.
Yeah.
Like, it's like in both ways. Like, I feel like my soul's been waiting for this, and it's like divine timing. And then I feel like I've been waiting a long time. And
Always
it's the
divine
perfect
timing. And what even is time, yet when we're waiting for something, we feel the full force of time. Like this whole 3D construct of time, why does it do this to us?
You know, I used to get really upset when people like mess with my schedule or be 5 minutes late or, reschedule last minute. It would drive me insane. Now I'm like, wasn't meant to be, wasn't meant to talk to them today. I'm grateful or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Like, even if I need to reschedule, I trust that, like, okay, you know what? The other person might feel really grateful that they have this space in their schedule now. And if they don't, then maybe that's still part of their journey. I don't know. But
Exactly. I'm the same. I used to be I'm so on time and sharp with everything that I do. And then when it changes, I'm like, this is perfect because it's just opened up something else for me to experience. And, whether it's an interview, for example, for a podcast, it's like, okay, well, it'll be just as magical further down the track. So I'm so excited that you're here. We have had a reschedule, but we are here and I'm excited because you are an Akashic Records guide, energy healer, and spiritual mentor coach and soul activator. I mean, speak to me, girlfriend. You are you and I are just so aligned. We've obviously had a lot of conversations off air as well. But you and I are just on the same page about so many things, and we've connected on social media. We have a lot in common, and I know that there's so much more to learn from you as well. So let's dive in. I want to talk about the Akashic Records because it's been spoken about a little bit on this podcast, and I think it's time to really give the listeners just a really clear idea of what the Akashic Records are, because it kind of gets thrown around a little bit in the spiritual community. I'm not going to lie. Tell us what that is.
It's interesting, at least my perspective of how you said it gets thrown around in the spiritual community, because over here, I feel like so many people are like, what are you talking about? And then when I explain it, they're like, oh, that's what it is. So over here, I feel like in some circles, there's a bit of a confusion. And the other thing that I run into a lot, and this is very interesting because this ties over with the work you do, is a lot of people only think of the Akashic Records being connected to past lives. And while that is true, it's that because if you think about the Akashic Records as this energetic library or I don't know, energetic Google, right? That holds everything, every person's soul, past, present, and future possibilities, then essentially you're tapping into, yes, past lives, but also what if the purpose of you coming to the Akashic Records, whether it be for a reading or for your own personal growth in your own journey, is to help you do just that, to grow, to get more clarity about who you are, to be able to help expand you and help you to grow into a whole new possibility, a whole new dimension. And I feel like if you are only thinking about Akashic Records being specific to past lives, you're also cutting off other possibilities that are there for you.
Yes, it's so true. And I always reference, I explain this to people when I'm talking about past lives because, we were just talking about the construct of time before, and time as we know it is in the 3D realm. And we have landed on a planet of, polarity, and we have time and space here. Beyond that, beyond the physical expression of the human form in the spirit world, there is no such thing as time, which then gives way to infinite possibilities. And it's funny, I was having this conversation with someone recently about we were talking about the creator and what happened before the Big Bang. And I was thinking, I really went inwards with it, and I was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, well, hang on, that if we're talking about a creator, we're actually creating a starting point, which is essentially time-based. And if we remove the concept of time and we just have the infinite, which is so hard for our little human brains to comprehend, but what does that look like? What does that feel like? And I really sort of sat with it and did my own head in with it. And
Woo!
I just kind of
Yeah.
yeah, exactly. I kind of ruminated with it. I'm like, I got to get down off this. Like, it's too
Yes.
much.
Some
But,
of it's a mind fuck. Really, some
it
of it's a
really
mind fuck.
is. It is a massive mind fuck. And the thing is, like, you get to go, however deep you want with it. But when I speak to people about past lives, our human minds can comprehend the past because we think, oh yeah, we're going back in time because it's already been lived. But I also remind people that and I've had people go forwards in time, and essentially it's all parallel because our human minds can comprehend the construct of time as linear. When you start saying, no, everything's happening, all at once on, all these different timelines all at once, you just like, what? No, I cannot compute. Like, our human brains cannot comprehend that. And so this is why I love the Akashic Records, because I truly believe it's an infinite library of all possibilities. And to even wrap our heads around that is ridiculous.
It's interesting since I started doing this work. I mean, I had an instant personal, like visceral reaction with the Akashic Records where it just made sense to me. And we can talk about that in a minute. That's fine. But I wanted to like share something else here is that I was led to start doing like free mini readings on social media, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook. And it's interesting when people come. I have people who come who are like definite soul contracts, right? Like they find me, they're like, oh my God, this is incredible. And then, we're like kind of like besties for life type of, like that type of a fairy tale. And then there's also people who come, and it's interesting because a lot of people come and I think they don't fully grasp what the Akashic Records is because they are really like keen. I'm going to use one of your words, like keen. I feel like that's something you would say. They're really keen on like having this answer. Will I get married? Will I get this job? Some kind of like a future or something that they're really attached to. And one of the most important things to remember if you're working with the Akashic Records is how can you open up and shift your questions? Okay, yeah, you might want to know when you're getting married, but what could you say like, what could I know? Or, what can I know about how I'm showing up in a relationship? Or what can I know about how I can be, oh, I have chills, how I can even be even more fuller of a being to attract, or what can I know about what my marriage will be like? I mean, you could ask it more generally like that to maybe get insight into how it can help you right now. But when we're asking like questions that we're really attached to, I mean, I can still tune in and get an answer because the answer is the answer, whatever the answer is. But also remember, it's
Yeah.
just like Google. The quality of what you type in for your search is the quality of what's going to come out.
Oh, that's so true. I like that analogy. And do you know what I really think, Jenny, is that From, I guess, more of a psychology perspective, and this is something that I studied, doing hypnotherapy and psychotherapy and even NLP, is when we start to look at people's tolerance for ambiguity, we start
Mm,
to then we're able to gauge whether the questions that they want to know are going to be so specific, because a lot of people can't handle the unknown, because the way we've coded in our psyche, and this I'm talking about throughout human evolution, the way that we have coded the unknown is unsafe. And when something is unsafe, ultimately our safety is compromised, our survival is compromised, so we automatically go into abort mission, we might die.
mm,
And so we just want answers so we can plan for what might happen or what might not happen and how we're going to feel, because ultimately at the end of the day we've got a fear of those feelings. That's,
mm-hmm.
that's, I mean, coaching in a nutshell.
Yeah, yeah.
And so when we sort of break it right down, I start to notice, when people have got, they just want so many answers to things. And I've got some incredible friends that are like psychics and mediums. They connect with dead loved ones, and it's such an incredible gift. And they get so burnt out from constantly being asked, what's happening in my career, when am I going to find love, or what's happening with my financial situation, because these seem to be sort of the top things that people are so fearful of, and don't have a high tolerance for the ambiguity around that. It's like we've just forgotten how to just be and accept and enjoy the mystery of life and all things that life has to offer. So where are you? Is that something, you're nodding away at me? Is that something that you
Mm-hmm.
see in your line of work as well?
Yeah, it's interesting. I was just thinking about the way that here's the thing. When you work with the Akashic Records, you may desire a certain answer. You may have one of these questions, or maybe you don't. Let's just say everybody who's listening doesn't even have any of those questions about, when's my career, when am I making money, like when am I getting married, or who's my love, or whatever. You know, you could ask a question, the record keepers are going to share an answer with you. The thing
Mm,
is it may not be the answer that you perceive or that you want to hear, but it's going to be the answer that's in your highest and best good.
yeah.
So I think that that's another layer of working specifically with this modality, I'm sure with other ones too, is how can you detach from what you perceive the answer should be? I mean, even
Mm,
just take this out of spirituality. Let's just take this into life, talking to a coworker, talking to a family member. How
yes.
can you pull yourself away from what you feel like the answer or the outcome or the behavior should be? Because the minute that you're attached to something, you are by default, you're let down if it's not
If
what
it's
you
not
thought it would
that,
be.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And I always check in with people's relationship about being wrong about something.
Mm.
And I'll ask them, like when I'm, starting to work with people through coaching, I will ask them, like, what happened for you when you were a kid and you got something wrong? How did your parents respond? How did your school teachers, your friends, your siblings respond if you got something wrong? And how did you feel about being wrong? Because ultimately, if we don't have the relationship with ourselves in order to be wrong and be still like so self-loving and self-nurturing through that, we're just going to fear being wrong all the time, and we're going to do
Mm.
anything to try and avoid that. And so then we build up this this perception of what we want, and then we can't handle the truth. We can't handle getting it wrong, losing. Like we've just become just I can't even find the word for it. We've just become little bitch energy. That's what we've become, Jenny. Little bitch energy.
And you're just saying that the other version of that I was thinking is like we just are afraid of losing control or what we perceive as the control that we have, you know.
Powerlessness. There it is. Got
Yeah.
it. Yes,
Yeah.
one of the core fears. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I'd love to hear from you. How did you even get into this line of work? Like what happened? What was the catalyst for you? Were you born and you just like came out of the womb like preaching Akashic Records, or was there a catalyst moment for you that
You
you were like,
know,
oh, there's something here?
look, sure, on some level I came out preaching Akashic Records. Let's just go ahead and put that out there because
Your
I
first
hear
word was Akashic.
I was like, it wasn't mom, it was Akasha. And they were like, what? No, it definitely wasn't. Definitely wasn't. I was a very like normal overachieving kid, totally playing in the matrix. you know, A++, I only got 1B in college, full ride, all the scholarships, all the things, right? So definitely not. And it's interesting because now that I do this work, hearing other intuitives or other people who were born intuitive or born medium or born psychic or whatever, in the beginning I was kind of checking myself like, oh, I'm not born. Does that make me less than? And it's like, no, it doesn't, because sometimes we turn on. And for me, I've spent over 10 years in spirituality, going down different channels and different loops and different things. I've hired intuitive coaches. I've hired coaches that work with angels, and I've had the readings. You know what, even over 10 years ago, probably 15 years ago, I even had an Akashic record reading. But at the time I was like, what the hell is this? Okay, like it didn't mean nothing to me at the time. And I never thought that I would be on the other side of the table. I never thought that I would be the intuitive, the channeler, the connector. I just never thought that that was in my realm of possibility. And so it really is perhaps a divine appointment to come to this work. And it really started because I found a book that was in mainstream America called Waking Up in 5D. And I wasn't expecting to see that at a Barnes and Noble. Like, that was not something I was expecting. I mean, it was like outward facing. It's not like it was like behind in the spirituality section. Like, I had to root to get it. It was facing out. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I bought that book, and that author, she had multiple books, and I bought them all. I guess in some kind of an obsession to know everything. I don't know. It was all fun. And there was one book that I had yet to buy of hers. And it was this dark looking maroon book called Opening the Akashic Records. And I was like, no, that's not for me. That's for other people.
That's for the woo-woo ones.
Yeah, like that's not my thing. Well, somehow, I wish maybe one day it'll drop in, but somehow I ended up owning that book, going through it, feeling a difference in, like, if I was doing a higher self channeling or myself or the Akashic Records. Ended up going through certification, and literally that's like a year and a half ago. My whole life is dramatically different now than what it was a year and a half ago. It has absolutely changed my life. And so I do want to say this as a little mini disclaimer here. If you're listening and you're like, oh, there's no way I could do what Jeni's doing, or no way I could do what Jen's doing, or whatever it is, the thing is that what if your path to and with the Akashic Records has nothing to do with being a reader? Nothing to do with being a channeler? What if it's just about what it opens up for you, or what it leads you into, or what kind of discoveries you have from receiving a reading, or learning to open the records for yourself, or whatever version or whatever path you're led down with it? So don't, just try to, if you notice yourself being like, well, I'm not going to be a reader because Jeni had this experience where she didn't think, no, like, it could lead you wherever it's meant to lead you.
I find the Akashic Records so powerful. I've worked with the Akashic Records in past life regression therapy for when I was doing my training earlier this year, so 2023. We stopped by the Akashic Records, and I had such a profound experience. I'd done Akashic Record, like recorded meditations before, which I got into straight away. I was surprised how quickly I could drop in. And hands down, my most favorite tarot deck of all time is the Akashic Tarot.
Ooh,
it has
fun.
just been my bestie. Like, it is so accurate for me, and it's so tuned in. And like, from the very first moment, I'll share a little story, actually, side note about this tarot deck. So I will link to it in the show notes because I can see it on my shelf, but I can't see it with my human eyes. It's in front of me. It's probably about 2 meters away. And it's like it's like yellow font on light green, and it's really hard to read. I know it's like Sharon and her sister, I think it is. Anyway, I'll link to it in the show notes. But the very first time I used this deck, I was away with a girlfriend for a medicine journey. And I remember right before we stepped into the medicine journey, I always take a screenshot of the time, because I just want to know what time we go in, and then obviously what time we come out, so I can kind of gauge how long we're in there. So anyway, I took a screenshot, and went about my day, went about the evening, had the most beautiful journey. And then the next day, I'm pretty sure it was her deck that we were using with the Akashic Tarot. And this card, the first card that I pulled, it was called the On Time card. And it was a man standing at a train station, and he was about to get on the train, and everything alluded to the fact that everything was divine timing. But there was like this almost like a lamppost, I think, in the imagery. Like the images are incredible in this deck, and on there was a clock, and that clock showed the exact time that I'd screenshot on my phone that I'd stepped into that medicine ceremony the night before. And it wasn't even like a common o'clock time. It was like 10 to 5 or something.
Uh-huh.
And it had my attention then. I was like, okay, of all the times in like, the 24-hour or the 12-hour period on an analog clock that it could be, it was that. Okay, you have my attention. I will get a deck. And I'll race out and got a deck. And I've worked with it so much, and it's so wildly accurate for me. Like I use it in readings with other people. Like I use it all the time. It's just like it's my BFFE. And then through past life regression therapy training, like just stopping by the Akashic Records and just like having this most profound experience, there was no denying how incredibly powerful and supportive we'll call it a place, this tool is, this modality is. And we're so blessed that we've got access to it. And so we kind of want to dive in, Jeni, about how people have access to it, because it sounds like just this, like, I guess, like woo-woo library, essentially, which it kind of is, and it's kind of not. So how do we access it, and what do we have to do to be able to get into the state to even get there?
Yeah, I'll back up a little bit. And I learned through my training that back in the day, I don't know, we could be talking about hundreds of thousands of years ago, if we're keeping to the 3D linear time, a long time ago, right? The Akashic Records has been around for a long time because it's this energetic field that holds all that is, ever was, and will be. So, long time ago, the people who had access to the records, it was only granted access to a few, right? It was mystics and seers and sages and medicine people, and like there was very specific people who are granted access because it is so sacred and it is so powerful. And I could venture to say that maybe at those times it just wasn't really accepted. It wasn't the time to come out, whatever the other reasons were. So now the Akashic Record is available to all who are interested. So anybody can learn to open and access their own records. It's available to all. Now, of course, I would like to say, because it is so sacred, it's not just like, just some random person can go in there slinging around, figuring out whatever, And I don't know, maybe people do. And my hope, my desire would be that the record keepers and the beings that hold this energetic space and are, kind of like keep over it would be like, you don't belong here. You know what I'm saying? That would be their job, to keep that kind of unethical type of thing out, right?
Is that would be if someone's like, for example, prying on someone else's or there without permission?
Yeah, you really shouldn't. That's what I would think. I've never tried it, so I don't know what they do if they kick you out of someone else's. Like, I'm not going
that's
to,
like
because
like universal law.
yeah, I'm not even gonna go there. I feel like if I were to do that, it feels like I would be like locked up in quantum. Like just be like, sorry,
There's
you took
karma
away this
involved in that.
privilege. Yeah, like I'm not doing that. So the cool thing about the records is that you can ask about other people. So before we got on here, I actually asked, I was like, well, what can I know about today with this podcast with Jen Hamilton? And these were the words that came through.
But side note, I actually said to myself as I was like getting ready, putting my makeup on before our call, I was like, I tuned into your energy as well. I wonder if it was exactly the same time that we had just opened this channel between us, because I was thinking to myself, I'm like, okay, I wonder what needs to come through for today. I'm so curious as to what you wrote down. Tell me spill the tea, sis.
Okay, hold on. I really have tea, so I don't want to spill it. So, universe, I'm not spilling this.
I can't think of it. Yeah, let's not spill the tea. Let's spill the metaphorical tea.
Okay, so here's the words that came through. It was luxurious fun, playful vibes, determined energy, focus and flair, left-brained meets right-brained.
I love that. So is that to me in a nutshell? Is that my journey ahead? Tell me about what that projection is all about.
Well, for me, this wasn't necessarily specific to you. We could do, at some point, we can do like a little mini reading for you if you want after we kind of have a chat. We can totally do that and see what's there. But this was more of like me getting my records asking, what can I know about this podcast with Jen? Just to see
Yes.
what's there. Like, what can I know about this? And honestly, this is, I just started teaching the Akashic Records recently and teaching others how to access. And I still haven't officially answered your question, but we'll get there about like, how do you actually drop in? But I've just started teaching people. And one of the students was asking, like, what's the difference between, my higher self and the Akashic Records? Because why would I ask, like, if the Akashic Records is sacred, why would I ask this question? Like, what can I know about today? Or like, she's like, that just seems basic. It seems like I would ask my higher self that. I was like, well, perhaps maybe you do. Maybe this question's not one you get in the records. Maybe it is. I don't know. It's your journey. The thing is that when I ask this question for me, I find it fun. I like to see what comes through. One morning I did this because I'll ask almost every day, like, what can I know about today? To see what comes through. And one morning they had told me like patience, like you'll have to wait for a bit. And I was like, what does that mean? Well, come to find out is someone was coming to my place so we could go hiking. And we were supposed to leave at a certain time so we could get back at a certain time type of thing. And she ended up back in her car into something and she was all frazzled and then it made her late. And then she was like 20 minutes late or something. And then she was frazzled when she got there. So we didn't leave for like 30 minutes after the like proposed time. And I was like, it's all good. The records told me to be patient today. I had a
I
feeling
have
something
patience.
would
And
happen.
did that come through with automatic writing? Do you, when you sort of tune into that, do you just sit there with a pen and paper and just write down whatever comes through, or are you clairaudient? Are you hearing things? How does that like
All of
project
the
for you?
above. So when I'm opening for myself, it's primarily I'm writing in a journal.
Yeah.
I've also typed on a keyboard too. I actually brought through a couple of messages for the group because they were like, because I'm like, when I train the Akashic Records, I'm not sitting here and talking about the history. Like, I just don't feel like that's as important for what I'm meant to hold space for people. I feel like if you need to know the history of the records, that you're going to be led to the books or the teachers or the things that will teach you the history if that's what you need to know. My
Mm-hmm.
classes are for those who haven't been trying to get into the records and doubt themselves or wonder if they really are in the records or just unsure and they want that space to practice. So I was
Mm-hmm.
talking about it and they're like, yeah, we'd still really like to know. And I'm like, all right, fine. I'll see. I'm going to tune in one time. So you're going to probably find this interesting, but I actually sometimes channel when I'm at like a Panera, like a cafe or something.
Yeah.
So I was at a cafe and I had my headphones in. I had how do you pronounce it? Solfeggio frequencies, solfeggio, SOL. It's like the hertz, like
I don't know.
963 hertz. What? I don't
Binaural.
know how
I
to
just
say.
call them. Well, there's binaural beats and then there's frequencies.
Well, these are more the
So,
frequencies. So it's like the hertz that align to the heart or the crown or there's a name for it.
oh,
SOLFEGGIO.
yes, I have heard of that, and I know them by another name as well. And it's coming to me, and it's gone. I know what you're talking about, though.
I put it in the little back chat. So,
Yeah.
anyways, I was listening to those and I was getting ready to write my journal. And I was like, I felt this energy where it was like, there's a lot that's going to come through and you're going to have a full conversation. I was like, okay. So I got in my computer because I can type pretty fast. So I opened up my computer and opened up a little Word doc and then just literally like 2 pages of typed information was like coming through. I've also
Wow.
texted on my phone,
Uh-huh.
like I'm in bed. I open the records before bed and I'm not intending on asking any questions, but then I'm like, oh, okay, I guess you guys are going to talk to me. Let me text myself what's coming through. In a reading, it comes through in a lot of different ways. It comes through pictures, songs, words, feelings. I get a lot of feelings that come through.
Mhm,
I get like energy packets that download that I
mhm.
translate over the best I can to like explain like, this thing just dropped in. So let me do my best to explain what the hell this is.
And that's the
Um,
thing, you can download it energetically, but then you've got to find sort of like human words for it. That's one of the things sometimes I struggle with downloads. It's like, uh, yes.
there was one time this happened once when I was doing the mini readings online. One of the girls who came, I had this download and I was having a hard time finding the words, and I I knew at some level that she'd be able to receive this. And let's just say maybe it dropped in, the knowing dropped in from the records where they were like, send it telepathically. I was like, I've never really done that before, but this is what they're asking me to do. Oh, and by the way, I'm live on YouTube and everywhere else right now with people who probably have no fucking clue what's going on. So I'm like, all right, guys. So I'm going to send this telepathically. And the cool thing is I actually know this person and I know that they will be able to receive this telepathically. So don't be scared, because if you were to come to a reading, doesn't mean I'm going to telepathically send you information. You're going to be like, what the fuck? What I just pay for? You know what I'm saying? Like, so I was like, okay, trust the process. And I sent this packet of information to her. And then she hit me up later. She was like, oh my God, that's exactly what I needed. And she like Venmoed me some money. Thank you so much. And I was mind blown. Like,
that is incredible.
it's like, what? So hold on. We're kind of getting far. So let's go back to like, how does the everyday person get in? Cause like now we're kind of far where people are like, wait, I don't watch telepathic. What's going on? How do you get in? So there are a lot of different ways. You mentioned meditations. I don't lead people through Akashic meditations to get into their records. That's not one of the modalities that I use. What I use right now is in my class, there's 5 different prayers that I give everybody access to. And then that way you can kind of feel and see which prayer or intention or set of words, if you don't like the word prayer, like whatever this like piece of paper with words on it that get you into the records. They're all different. The one I like the best is The Key by Laura Coe, because it's really light, and it's the one I'll use here when I get into yours. It's like really light, the words, you know, there's not a lot of like religious words in it. You know, that can be sometimes a turn off to people. You know, there's other ones that are like Lord Divine Director Samat Kamara, Goddess of Liberty, and you know, the God of all universes, allow me access to my, that's going to work for some people. Actually, that's like the one I learned on. So there's going to be different ways. And really, the most important thing is how can you allow yourself to come into this place where you're grounded and you're open and you're ready to receive?
Yeah, it's such a big component, isn't it? You've got to be ready for it because you just don't know what's going to come forward as well.
Yeah, and the thing is everybody's going to have a different sacred bubble that they create. So for some people, it might be a meditation that puts them there. Others, it might be breath work. Others, it might be Reiki. Others, it might be crystals. Others, it might, you know what I'm saying? It might be this music, the solfeggio frequencies. Like everybody's going to have something different that's going to help them to set their sacred bubble, to really pull away from all the stresses and anxieties of the world and the chatter and the other energies. Is coming into this space so that you can receive. Effortless effort is one of the words the record keepers gave for the training. Is effortless effort is one of the intentions. Detached, like
Yeah.
sense of detached awareness of what's going on.
So tell me, Jeni, like when you go there, can you find out the bad stuff? Like do people get curious? Obviously, like we don't get privy to information like when am I going to die or when is someone else going to pass? But obviously, like it's not always rainbows and butterflies. It's not always about you know, the joy and the fun and all the good things. Tell us about some of the things that maybe I'm not even going to label it good and bad. What are some of the things that might be, or even if you've had an experience where it's just kind of been like, oh, okay, I need to know that, and it's not great news.
Mm-hmm. So I've got 2, maybe 3 stories. We'll see what comes up. One of them is, it's interesting that these all seem to happen on my free mini readings. So one of them, the woman was asking, you know, a typical question like, oh, what can I know? Whatever, like, just tell me what's here for me. Okay, great. So one of the things that was shared was that there was going to be challenges ahead. And they invited her to use those challenges as an opportunity to like reframe the way in which she was like working with them, way she was perceiving them, what it is she was taking from them, because she's also going to be helping others from that work. So it's an opportunity for her just to like pause and maybe look at it from a different perspective. And it's interesting because we chatted after, and this was one of the things that had me realize, there's many, but this is one of the things that had me realize like how impactful this work is. And so, you know, she was like, oh my God, like there's challenges and there keeps being challenges. This is so horrible. My Akashic record reading was horrible. And I was like, I haven't perceived any of these readings as horrible. Let me go back and listen to what was there. And I realized that there's an opportunity for us when we have a reading that in the moment of the reading, we hear what we want to hear. And if we give ourselves a chance to re-listen to the reading or re-listen to the messages, we may hear them from a different perspective. Because in the moment, we're looking for something. And two, even a word such as challenges. It's like she really focused on challenges, being like, God, why is there so many challenges? This is horrible. I don't want there to be challenges. This sucks. And I listen back and I'm like, I don't really hear it from that perspective. I'm not saying that's not your reality. Hey, it's your life. But I feel like when I hear the word challenges in the Akashic Records, it's like challenge could be at the grocery store with somebody who's being, the cashier who's not really working with you, or it's a coworker, or maybe it is one of those harder challenges as well. But really, how can you shift the way in which you're dealing with these so you can have a whole different perspective of it? And I feel like the Akashic Records are there to help us to grow in our frequency and grow in our awareness. And regardless, like, isn't it just a much more fun and flowful life, even when the bad things come, when we're able to view things from a lens, like a higher perspective lens, where we're able to kind of look from above and be like, that's interesting that happened, that I blew up at that person and I yelled at that person. That's interesting. Now I know that takes some work. Not everybody's at that place where they can have a level of like detached awareness as to what's happening. But I feel like a lot of the messages are helping people to come into this space. And I think that it's more in the way that the messages are interpreted that could be viewed as, oh God, this is the worst thing I've ever heard.
It's so true, because there's good and bad that's a human construct, because we've just given it's such a subjective perspective, isn't it? Good or bad. And your version of good might be very different to my version of good. And it's the same as happiness. It's the same as success. It's the same as everything, really. Mm-hmm. We decide what we make it mean. And it's funny because the first episode of season 2 of the podcast is called A Breakdown and Awakening in PTSD in Paris, where I share, the shit show that 2023 has been for me, going through a breakup and then going through like a nightmare trip in Paris. But I also reference the fact that through that was so much growth, like the growth work that I have done on such a personal level that I didn't even know was possible for me, that has, expanded this year. I actually wouldn't have it any other way, because of who I am now and where I'm at in my life now, and the relationship that I have with myself too. I wouldn't change it. At the time, it was an absolute shit show, and like I said, I wouldn't be the person I am without it, but I see it as such a powerful thing that I went through over and over again to continue finding courage and strength to move forward. And, really pull out all of the tools in my tool belt that I have collected over time in this space, and that I've supported so many other people through. I had all of that around me. So I was so held and supported by myself, and then, my family and friends and everyone holding space around me, that I was able to get through it. And I think it's so important when we're going through these things, or when we're, I've been through so much grief this year. I've gone through the breakdown of a relationship. I've gone through the loss of a family member. Like there's been a lot going on. And at the same time, I can still sit there and go, I love this wild and precious life. And I'm having such an incredible time being a human, because I'm getting to experience that full spectrum of human emotions. Mm-hmm. And when we start to, like you said, we start to notice where we can reframe it, because if I had gone to the Akashic Records, it's not going to be like, oh, this is a good experience or a bad experience. It's just an is experience. It just is. Mm-hmm. And so it's what we choose to give it charge for, because I find like I love having a bit of a cruisy life at times. But I also don't grow in cruisy. We don't grow until we get outside of that comfort zone. And it's so important to have that downtime and have that rest, and just like things are coasting along nicely. But I reference it to being like the breath. So we're constantly inhaling and exhaling. And so you know, the times where things are really tough and, you know, you're going through a really hard time and things like you feel so powerless to the things out of your control. It's almost like you're just taking these big breaths in. And then when it's time to rest, it's just that beautiful exhale to let it all go. But then also after the exhale comes another inhale. And that's, I mean, that's the cycle of life anyway. And I feel like the Akashic Records is probably the most neutral space that we can go to. It's what we decide to give meaning to.
Yeah, the energy in the records is that of unconditional love and
Mm.
support. And one of the most beautiful things happened in class this week, our very first session getting in. And the question was, Akashic record keepers and guides, what message is in my highest and best good right now? And one of the students shared that their experience was, I think they had a word, but then they just felt. They felt like they were being embraced, and it just brought so many tears to their eyes. And it was just so beautiful, even just like tapping back, and I can feel it, because that was the exact confirmation that they needed to feel and experience that energy of being held. Because the Akashic record
Mm.
keepers are not judgmental. They're not judging you. Now, if you choose to receive it that way, then that's kind of on you. But like what comes through is not from a judgmental nature. It's not.
Yeah.
It is love. It is support. It is care. It is like you said, with all the grief and everything you've gone through and all of the shit show that you've gone through in 2023, had you come to the records, what might have come through for you was some kind of a guidance to help, you know, maybe give you a little hope or give you a little light or help give you grounding or whatever it is, could give you perspective to
Mm.
deepen your understanding, or maybe even things that you had already been thinking at some level, but maybe hadn't verbalized or hadn't talked about. So some kind of a confirmation
Mm.
that you're on
Yeah.
the right path, or that you're doing the right thing, or that it's okay, or whatever it is, you know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that gives more weight in gold than here's your step 1 to 10 about what to do next.
Yes, that's so true. And then you realize that you are just never alone. You've
Mm-hmm.
got so much support with your spirit team. I call them my light posse, you know, with the spirit team around you. You know, you can call on these things where we are gifted with so many tools as humans to tap into things beyond just the human experience. Should we choose to? Should we find that that's what's going to get us through to that next step? And I find that, you know, there's so many people going through their inner awakening process. And when they realize just how blessed they are with these tools, like you realize that you just can't be alone, and ultimately you can't get it wrong, because we're
Mm-hmm.
here to learn and to grow and to have all these experiences, and it cannot be fucked up if we try it. Even when we think it's a shit show, it's not. It's all part of it, and it's all part of the growth and kind of what we signed up for as well. I don't want to get to the end of my life. I don't want to be 128 years old on my deathbed being like, oh, that was fucking mediocre, wasn't it? You know?
Yeah, right, right. I totally agree.
I want to
And when
know
you
that I just lived fully.
Yes. And when you said we can't get it wrong, that reminded me of guidance that's come through in many readings in many different ways, because it comes through slightly different each time. But the thread, like I can see some of the threads as I go through, is when people ask questions about kind of like, am I on the right path, or what's my next steps, or whatever. Not ones necessarily that they're super attached to, like we talked about before. And, you know, this is interesting. I wonder if this is actually a vision or a vision they're giving me now, but it's like, one thing that they'll share is they're like, here's the thing, like, yes, there's this path that's very straight and direct, and it's very clear, it's right in front of you. The thing is you don't have to take that path. This path that winds all the way over here and whatever, at any point you can get off the windy path and come on the straight path, or you can wind and you're going to get to the same result. Like, that type of a message comes through a lot for people about many different things. I can't specifically remember any of their questions, but like I can remember this feeling of this being like, there really is not a right path. Or what they'll do is I'll see a vision of them. They're reminding me of this now. I'll see a vision of them where like they're facing the path, but their head is looking the other way. Like I'll see their head backwards on them and it's looking the other way. Or I've seen a vision with someone with like bars around their head, like they're in jail. So they're walking the path, but like their face is in jail. And all of
Mm.
these things hit so deep and impactfully for the like deeply for the person and impactful. They're like, oh shit, you're right. Like I am kind of looking behind. Like how can I expect to move forward if I'm like looking back there?
Yeah, and I don't know if you've had this experience. I want to share what happened. So I talked about in the first episode of season 2, I went through a breakup this year, and my ex-partner, my now ex-partner, and we'd actually discussed separating last year, and we were separated. We stayed living together for a while. We got back together after a couple of months, and I was adamant that we were not getting back together. That was the first time. I was like, it's a hard no from me. I've gone through the grieving process. I'm not in this relationship anymore. And he was kind of like, I really want to try again. And I was like, absolutely not. And then I had an experience where I feel like sometimes I jump timelines when I get on planes. I think that's a separate
Mm,
conversation. Anyway, I had to race urgently down to Melbourne because my father became very unwell
mm,
on holidays down there. So I had to go down and be with him. And I felt like I jumped a timeline. And all of a sudden, all I could see ahead in my future was building a life with Dave at the
mm,
time. And I came back and I was like, I think I got this wrong. I think we can work this out and be in a relationship together. And then it's so interesting because then when we separated this year, it's like we both just came to exactly the same point that we went to last time, but we both consciously made a decision to step back onto that timeline together to see if we could create a life together and grow together. And then we got to the end point of the relationship where it was like, no, we need to look at this. And funnily enough, it happened on the 5th of the 5th this year. I keep saying I got
mm,
portaled. Like it happened when, the veils were thin. Everything was like right in front of us that we needed to know. And we were both like, this is not, in service to either of us. And so I feel like last year we were presented with that timeline to either stay together or go our separate ways. We chose the timeline of staying together. However, it still led us back to separating a few months later, 7, 8,
mhm,
9 months later, whenever it was. And so for me, I realized, okay, there's nothing wrong with, getting back together and then trying again and then realizing that it's not going to work. Like I'm so at peace with that. And we knew that we'd given it our all. And at the same time, I also get curious, like had we like stayed separated last year, what that would have looked like. However, in my 3D reality, what transpired is what was meant to be anyway. And I
mhm.
feel so aligned on the path that I'm on now that I know that every decision that I've made to get me to this very moment in time has been exactly what I've needed. And so, and this is the thing, you can't get it wrong and you will circle back to where you're meant to be. And it's okay to take detours because that was also where you're supposed to be on that path at the same time. I hope that made sense.
It definitely made sense to me, and it actually reminded me of an inverse story that I've heard from another psychic. Her name's Elizabeth April, and she had shared a story, I think, on one of her one of her podcasts about when she was young. She was in love with this man, and they just had this beautiful life, and they were traveling the world together, and it was the most beautiful thing. Thought they were going to be together forever, type of just love, so deeply in love with him. And she had gone to a psychic, and as part of the psychic reading, I don't know, like whatever came through was like, oh, you guys are going to go to Paris, you're going to France, you're going to go to Germany. I don't know. There was like something like that came through. And she was like, oh my God, this is so great. And kind of went back and, oh, guess what? We're going to go all these places. And shortly after this experience, they ended up breaking up. And she was very confused because there was nothing like wrong that she was aware of. And it was like, what happened? And it wasn't until years later that she got clarity that when she had gone to the psychic and learned that they went here, 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 and there, like that's what they were kind of meant to experience together. So the fact that she knew they were going to experience it, it kind of just collapsed time and there was no need for them to go do all that together. And so that's kind of what ended their relationship. Like, I guess energetically, if we talk about it, he must have felt a shift and was like, I'm out, because it's like that all just happened and she didn't need to go through that. So
Mhm.
for me, when I hear something like that, it just has me just really, once again, become from this detached awareness. And when you think about the quantum, that is a mind fuck. But at the same time, if you're able to kind of look at things from a different perspective and hold the perspective of what you said, divine timing, maybe it was tough, but I still had these lessons that brought me to where I was. Like if we're able to just shift into a different viewpoint,
Yeah.
could it
Yeah.
bring us
And I
more peace?
Yeah, I think it's so important to Continually practice the art of non-attachments and get really, comfortable with impermanence as well, because I think that's where the magic is. Because if we look at it, everything, I mean, nothing is permanent. Everything is constantly changing. And when, we can find the comfort within the discomfort of the space of powerlessness, and we can find tolerance for ambiguity, that's where we're actually going to find peace in all things, because we don't have control over certain things. And just because we go to psychics, there's some incredible psychic and mediums out there as well. I've got friends who are amazing at this, and they're going to be able to read the timeline that you're on. And it's funny because I had a reading at the start of the year with a beautiful friend of mine, Amy Woods. She's incredible. And she did a 12-month forecast for me. And so I was kind of like looking at the cards and what was coming up for each month. And I was like, oh, yep, that's resonating. That's on track. And then bang, as soon as Dave and I separated and we kind of like jumped that timeline, everything changed. And I look back at it now and I'm like, nothing's what I thought it was going to be. And that's okay too, because what she was reading on was that current timeline. And sometimes it's nice not knowing all the answers as well, or not having that information. I'm really mindful of going for readings now. Sometimes like I just want to shift through something and I'm like, no, I'm actually prepared to hear the answer for that, or I'm prepared to know something and knowing that it might change at any time as well. And then there's times where I'm like, oh, I don't get a lot of surprises in life. Just give me the mystery of life, please and thanks. And I say that, when I'm doing, readings to people as well with, card readings or intuitive readings, this is what I'm getting for this particular timeline. And because now that you've got this information, that could totally change as well. And that's okay. But this is where we're at right now. So I think we almost need like a disclaimer, because people just get so butthurt over the fact that if something changes and it doesn't go to what they were told by their psychic, they're like, well, it's all bullshit, isn't it?
Yeah. Well, and I think that one thing that we can add into the equation is that things are rapidly changing for many, many people right now, and likely a lot more rapidly than they have in the past. So where a 12-month psychic reading could have been very potent and very real because we were just going about our lives in that way. And I don't even know if this would even apply to our lifetime. I mean, I'm thinking, I don't know, earlier, or I don't know, years ago, not necessarily in our lifetime. Things are rapidly changing even more so. So I don't know, a 12-month reading could be fun, but at the same time, if you're playing in some of the world that Jen and I are playing in, I already know that a 12-month reading would be a complete crapshoot after 1 month, because I feel like I'm just rapidly changing so much, and because I'm choosing to lean in to those uncomfortable moments. I'm saying yes when things don't make sense. I'm following the illogical, intuitive nudges that are being placed in my path. Because if you think about, oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, it's just so powerful to live from that intuitive space, to ask, like, to check in, whether you're checking with the Akashic Records or your higher self every day, or just life itself, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, checking in every day, saying, what is it that I need to know? And then just opening yourself to just receive whatever's in front of you. That could be the catalyst for change that might not necessarily been on the path had you not answered this question. Like this particular episode that people are listening to might be that catalyst for change that they didn't realize was going to shift their whole entire timeline. And this, like, when we talk about infinite possibilities, it's because there are infinite possibilities of every which way this could go. And like this is I guess where the esoteric meets the 3D human world, is because we get the opportunity to try and comprehend what that even means, that there are infinite possibilities. And just because you think it's going to happen one way, or you've been told it's going to happen one way, you also have free will as well. And you do get to change, and you do get to go in a different direction should you choose to. And at the end of the day, that could have been the direction that was meant for you anyway.
Yeah. I mean, it definitely, when you get into the quantum things and you talk about vibrational frequency and what it is you're aligning to and what it is that you're calling in, I mean, yes, there's like the black and white portion of that. And if we talk about that example of a psychic tuning into your current timeline, or a card reading, or whatever it is, right? Like, you've got your current timeline, and the energy of who you are in this moment kind of paints out a timeline. So with your current limiting beliefs, your behaviors, the places that you're scared of stepping into or whatever. Like there's a whole timeline that paints out in front of you. That it's like when you do say yes to that thing you've said no to for years, or when you say no to the thing you've said yes to for years, or when you finally lean into that uncomfortable place, that's why that whole timeline has been rewritten. And yes, even just choosing a tea over an orange juice, I mean, you can get as little as that in the quantum. But I'm just thinking overall, right? Like if we here's I'm a kind of pulls a quantum thing here, that it's okay if we lose people, but I kind of want to talk into this like possibility thing. Okay, we'll just kind of have like a little moment. Is this whole idea, like if you are the creator and you're the creator of all your reality and all these possibilities and all these things, right? And you're here in the 3D and you're like, oh my God, let's talk money. Let's talk money, right? So it's like money. I don't have money. It's not making anything. Okay, but wait, if you're the creator, okay, I've created all these things. So if I'm the creator and I come out here and I'm the creator and I can create a different reality, okay, let me create a different reality. But then what happens is our own limiting beliefs and our own behaviors and the own things like pull us out of that creator realm and go, but look, I don't have money. It's not going to make it work. And how am I going to do it? Right? And then we're kind of back in this going, well, wait, but look at the reality in front of me. But then, well, whoa. But if I am the creator and I can create any possibility, what if I'm able to shift my perspective and look for opportunities or look for different things? Or even what if I'm able to shift into a whole new reality that I am not living in a state of lack right now? Even though the bank account may look a certain way, even though the job may look a certain way, even though what's in front of me may look a certain way. But what if I were to believe and lean into the idea that that's not the case? That's when you're really getting quantum and you're really stepping into these. And also know that you're human. I'm talking about this, and this is something I'm going through personally. I have these moments where I'm like, but this is what I see. Well, hold on. I'm the creator. My mind is spinning as I'm thinking about this. But if I'm the creator, like, what if I lean into a whole different frequency? What if I lean into a whole different truth? And what if that truth is my guiding light with the next steps I take instead of the current truth that I'm believing?
Yes, it's so true, isn't it? I saw this thing the other day that really resonated, is that it's not, when we're manifesting, we're already abundant in all of the things. All we need to do is actually just shift the limiting beliefs as to why we don't have something yet. And that really struck a chord with me as well, because in my view of the world, like there are so many manifesting coaches out there at the moment, and how to do this and this and this. And that's all well and good. That might work for them, but it's not the be all and end all either. And I find obviously like the coaching space, manifesting, not so much Akashic, but there's quite a few things I personally feel in my view of the world are quite oversaturated, but that's all I'm seeing because that is what is in my ecology essentially. Whereas someone might be listening to this who's never heard of the Akashic Records, doesn't know much about manifesting, and it's all brand new to them. But in my perception, in my view of the world, it's such a saturated thing. And so at the end of the day, it's about coming home to yourself and just connecting with yourself, having those quiet moments to go into meditation and just be with yourself. And it doesn't have someone else's reality of how they got there does not have to be copy pasted into yours. And I think that's so important to remember, that just because they're doing it in a certain way doesn't mean that you need to too. And I feel like this is part of possibly maybe the shadow side of the coaching industry, especially when it comes to manifesting, or like there's so many business coaches now, or so many like life coaches turned business coaches. Or in Australia, in my view of the world, there's a lot of like traditional life coaches turned affiliate marketers, and it's all about money. There's so much around. And look, money's amazing because it literally gives you freedom and options, to have all of these different experiences that you may not have, because let's be honest, we have to exist in this human experience with money to survive ultimately. And I feel like everyone's just desperate for survival because money has meant survival to them. And so there's a lot of people out there teaching these ways of all the steps that you've got to go through to get there, and monetizing that in exactly the same way. They're actually making money through teaching money. And it's interesting because I can't remember what book it was. It was a book that I listened to on Audible years ago, and it said, and this is why I've got really curious as to whether like these guys are just onto something, that the way to make money is teach people how to make money. And so maybe it's like this self-fulfilling prophecy around wealth. You know, maybe you and I haven't, you know, fully cracked that particular code yet. But I'm seeing so much around it, but I'm seeing so many people just drawn to wealth and money at the moment, because ultimately it is about survival. You know, we've coded wealth around survival and, you know, having our basic needs met. There's a lot of people in the world not having their basic needs met.
Mm-hmm.
And we've noticed that in the last 3 years with the shit show that the world has been as well. You know, we've been in housing crisis, cost of living crisis, like the cost of fuel is exponential at the moment. And so there's so many people are just so desperate for wealth that they'll do anything for it. And I feel like there's a lot of people monetizing off that. And that, you know, if it's working for them, amazing. But there's also, like, to me, I sort of see like that undercurrent of shadow for people as well. It's just that fear of lack ultimately.
Yeah.
And I feel like if we can get ourselves into this state where we realize that we are our own creator, and that we literally everything that has come into existence, like if I look around the room that I'm in, the computer that I'm on, everything that I have in front of me, that has all been brought towards me. And there's nothing stopping me from bringing in anything else that is in my highest good that I desire towards me.
Yeah. You know, it's the interesting thing that I want to add to that conversation that we just had about, especially about the lack and the running towards money and the wealth and it working for some and not working for others. And here's what I find is that there are different paradigms that we play in or that we plug into, known and unknown. And so for me, with the wealth conversation or like the lack conversation, I feel like I've been unplugging from a paradigm I do not want to participate in anymore. And that can be challenging because the whole world around me, the people around me, the conversations around me, that's what they know. So to have support in that process of saying, well, you know, it's not about money. I'm going to trust that the universe is bringing it to me. Very simple statement. You know, there's nuance in there. But like that kind of a statement is like, are you fucking kidding me? No, you need to go do these 7 steps, right? It kind of keeps pulling you back into that paradigm. And this could apply to anything, even outside of wealth or whatever it is like when you're unplugging from a paradigm or a set of beliefs or a way of being, there is this level of being able to not only ground yourself in a new reality, but to have somewhat of a support system there. And my husband is one of those for me as I'm unplugging out of this whole money thing and plugging into a whole new reality. I've been able to out loud process these things as I'm going, wow, I'm really triggered by that. And that really has me feeling unsafe. Is it true that I'm unsafe because I don't have X amount of dollars? Is that true? It's not true. It's literally just this belief that has literally molded everything that I've done around this belief, around my identity. So as I've been unplugging from that and he holds space and he reflects back to me a new reality, it's like, that's what I'm talking about, where you're like, okay, well, if that's not true, then what is? And it's scary to go to what you don't know as truth when you've lived in this fucked up truth. And I say fucked up truth because sometimes things aren't fucked up until we realize they're fucked up.
Yes.
And sometimes we may still choose to be in the fucked up truth because it is the truth we need. So there is no wrong in this. There's only what it is that helps you to. I still am going to come back to this whole coming to this place of detached awareness. I think you used a different terminology for it, but it's essentially the same thing. Us practicing detachment.
Yeah.
And being okay with it.
Yeah, and that in itself is a journey. Like things, I feel like things need to be in place for you to be able to get to that point. And like that, they're your foundations, because you've got to have foundations when doing this work. You've got to have things that you can essentially fall back on, or whether it's faith. Like faith is such a big thing for me. And I used to relate the word faith the same way I did to God. I used to just, it had such a religious connotation to it. And now I'm like, oh no, I just have like just faith in life's existence, really. You know, I have faith in myself. I have faith in everything is unfolding as it's meant to. And for me, that's such a beautiful place to hang out. Like it is so fucking peaceful when you just love yourself so wholeheartedly and unconditionally, and you just have faith and just this deep trust that you're just so held, that everything's just
Yeah.
perfect. And it's a beautiful place to be in. And then we get caught up again in the human experience, and the little limiting beliefs come in. They're like, oh, there's this thing. And then, a ridiculous number of bills show up, or you get your tax bill, or like someone pisses you off in the grocery store line or something, and you're like, "Ah!" But then you come back. And this is why, I'm so particular about having these daily practices that bring me back. And like you said, unplugging from paradigms, like check in with what you're consuming, check in with what it is that you're constantly seeing. Like I notice, I have to unfollow certain things on Instagram as well. I'm like, that's
Mm-hmm.
enough. That doesn't align with me anymore. That's not what it is that I want to consume. And I don't watch commercial TV. I haven't watched commercial TV for a long time. Side note, I occasionally watch like a Netflix series like Selling
Mm-hmm.
Sunset. I just dig into that because I just love just a little bit of humanness in there. And so, yeah, so for me, it's about having those things to come back to, really carving out that space for quiet time and the opportunity to just go inwards and just building that solid relationship with myself that no one else can give to me. And that's taken me a very, very long time to get there, Jeni. Like it's been such a journey to trust myself, honor myself, and just build this relationship where I'm not in competition with myself, where I'm not putting myself down, where I'm not like I wish I could show people what it's like to be on the inside of me, because it's freaking beautiful here. Like it's glorious. And like I said, it's taken me a lot to get there, and it's only growing and evolving as well. Like I'm only 37. There's so much more of this incredible life to live. I'm only going, deeper and wildly woo woo to get, more in touch with myself and more connected with myself. And that I look forward to what this relationship is going to be like, since I decided, no, I'm a team with myself. I'm in partnership with my higher self. I'm holding hands with my inner child, and I call her my little old lady. Like there's like, the three of us just walking through life together. And it's a gorgeous place to be. And for me, that's then, opened me up to my intuition becoming even sharper, my senses just even more online, and just feeling just so held through this cosmic joke that is life. That's what I call it, a big old cosmic joke.
Yeah. I love everything you shared because, one thing, and I love the reflection just for myself, because what we're talking about here and coming into this place of trusting our intuition and moving, being able to like trust the universe, is that I'm finding that the people I'm called, like that are being drawn and that I'm called to work with, like especially in a one-on-one container, not in a reading container, that's very different, but like a one-on-one container, um, are those who are shifting from like a go 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 type of mindset, or I control my outcomes, or whatever version of that, into this place of trusting the universe, because I went through it too. It's an interesting jump, it's an interesting journey that, interestingly enough, wow, I'm just having this moment where it's like, it's kind of exactly what we just talked about with the money jump or whatever. When you're unplugging from a paradigm and oh my God, mic drop. I'm like, holy crap, that's the same thing I just talked about. But like, I never viewed it that way because of whatever, when you're in it, you don't view it that way. But like, yeah, unplugging from the reality of like, oh, I crush my goals and I go, go, go into this trusting the universe and coming to this place of peace is kind of similar to the whole money thing I just talked about. It's very similar because it's
Yeah.
unplugging from one reality and into another and making
Yeah.
that jump.
Yes.
That one specifically is the one I've been helping people with. Not the money one, but that can be a byproduct. That can be a byproduct of the
And
work.
I think it's so important as you're going through this, this metaphorical unplugging from a system, a matrix, or a paradigm, is also knowing what it is that you do want to plug into, so you don't get lost in limbo in between as well. I think it's so
Mm-hmm.
important to really establish what it is that you do want, because we spend so much of our time whinging and bitching about what it is that we don't want. And I say that to my clients all the time. I'm like, don't tell me what you don't want, tell me what you do want, because that is the frame of mind that we need to be in order to literally manifest. Like we're literally creating with our thoughts all of this has come together because of our thoughts. So when you're conscious, when you have conscious awareness of what it is that you're unplugging from, be really conscious about what you do want to plug into, because that's what you're going to start seeing. Like literally your intention is the algorithm of the universe. You know, where you hold intention is what you are going to get. It's like putting in a search thing on Instagram and then all of the sponsored posts come up. Like, hello, this is what the universe is doing for you anyway. You've just been shown it on this magical platform called social media, which we've been so blessed with, to connect with really cool people around the world in this time and space. Thanks for coming to a TED Talk. I love social media for that.
Do you want to ask any other questions, or do you want to do a little mini reading?
I want to do a little mini reading. I think, is there anything else that you want to share? Actually, hang on. Okay, let's ask the question, what is it that you want to share with listeners, that like just a piece of wisdom that they're perhaps getting curious around? Okay, I want to explore the Akashic Records. Like, what piece of wisdom would you give to someone that wants to sort of start out getting curious?
2 words: do it. If the Akashic Records is on your radar, do it. Follow those nudges, because honestly, the Akashic Records, even though it is gaining more and more awareness among people, if it's being shown to you, if you've listened to this podcast, maybe it's come up in conversations or you've overheard other people talking about it, like, this is your sign, right? The Akashic Records is calling you to come connect. And I mean, a good place to start, everybody's going to be different, but I would say if you're more of the person who wants to go do some research and stuff, then cool. Go Google all the things and go join some classes on Udemy, or I don't know, like go find some podcasts, like go look it up and do all those things. Others of you are going to need like a visceral experience with the Akashic Records. So whether it's a reading with me or someone else you're drawn to, having a reading to feel and experience, some of you are going to need at some level that experience, because then that kind of just anchors it in and goes, oh. I'd say there's a small percent of people who could probably not ever need anybody. Let me rephrase. I don't like this word need. Who would not find a lot of advantage to having people be a part of the journey, because nobody needs, we can find all these things on our own. We have it all inside of us. Nobody needs any of this. And at the same time, it can be very supportive to have these, you know, different people in our lives open up different codes and spark different DNA in us. And so some of the people that have came on my path for a reading, I will probably never talk to them again. Not because I don't want to, but I feel like we were literally just meant to do this reading and then they just disappear. We have this great conversation. I think I'm going to talk to them again, and they freaking disappear. It's so bizarre to me. Because it defies traditional business, right? Like, oh, you get people on your list and they stay on your list and you nurture them. That's not how this works for me, at least.
No, exactly.
It's not. So if you're curious, if you're interested, if you're vibing with me, then hey, I've got a lot of different things you can plug into, free and paid. Come along, be a voyeur, jump in, or whoever else you're guided to. You know, it really doesn't matter, because we all you could have, if me, Jen, and another Jen, let's say 4 Jens were here, and we were all Akashic Record readers, and you asked a question, you would get a slightly different answer from each one of us, because we all are, even though we're tapping into the records and into the same frequency, we're all going to receive slightly different information based on our life experience, based on our vocabulary, based on, you know, what it is that we're meant to bring, the codes we're meant to activate for people. You know, it's rare that people come to me for an Akashic Record reading for past life stuff. It's rare that past life stuff comes through for me. It does, but I don't think that's what I'm meant to bring through. So if someone's like really craving that at some level, they may find themselves drawn to a different Akashic Record reader who maybe does a lot of that, or specific past life, or whatever version of that is. You know what I'm saying? They might not even see me, right? Like it might just be a complete blindness to me, because they're meant to go connect with someone who can bring through that for them.
Yes. And it's trusting that, isn't it? It's trusting that, you know, whoever it is that you're guided to, whatever path that you're on with any of this, you cannot get it wrong. It is for you. And so whether it's going to serve you to a certain point and then it takes you to the next point, it's the same with coaches. Like there's some coaches that can take you to a certain point and then you realize you actually can't take me any further, but thank you for bringing me so far. You know, and it's just realizing that it's all fucking perfect.
That should be the title. It's all fucking perfect. Entering
all
into the
fucking
Akashic
perfect.
Records.
I'm going to do that. It's all, I'm just going to write it down, fucking perfect in the Akashic Records.
Yeah, I'm so down for that. I'm so down for that. So
That's
yeah, I mean,
hilarious.
if you guys, I'm the Akashic Nomad, so that's pretty much how you can find me just about anywhere.
I will link to everything in the show notes about how people can find you, tap into all of your resources, everything like that. Let's go with the reading. I'm very excited. Do I have to do anything? Do I have to?
You don't have to do anything. So here's what's going to happen. So that way, I know you put this on video, but also that way the audio listeners will have an idea. Can you hear that lawnmower in the background?
I can.
I'm like, why are
it's
all these things
very
happening?
minimal.
Okay.
Kind
So
of
I
funny.
kept like
It's stopped now.
muting.
Oh, good.
Okay. Well, he's like driving by on the side yard right now, right by where
That's
I'm at.
hilarious. It's all
I didn't even
perfect. It's all
come
perfect, Jenny.
I know it is. Well, we're nomads, so I have no idea when these people are coming. They just come. Like
Exactly. I mean, nomads of life, really. Earth
by the way, I'm
nomads.
a nomad. By the way, full-time nomad. We didn't even talk about that.
We
So here's
didn't know. That'll be the next episode.
so here's what's going to happen. What I'm going to do, and you're going to hear all this, is I am going to do this prayer. I'm going to say it out loud. There's going to be a couple moments where I do have silence, and that's really where I'm dropping in and really connecting, especially because I've been so human-y and talking and, so I'm going to center myself and drop in. And then what we'll do is we'll do this kind of like a little mini reading. So when I come and I'm like, hey, your records are open, we'll do a little short opening remarks. So I'll share what's there for you, what messages are there. And then we'll do a question. And I'm guessing that'll probably be about 15 minutes or so, 10 to 15 minutes, depending on what's there. And if it's flowing, cool, we'll keep going. And if not, like, I'm not going to be hardcore about this. Like, oh, I can only give you 7 minutes of my time. Like, whatever. Whatever's meant to come through we'll both feel like a close. I'm also going to share that I am an open eye, like I'm a conscious channeler, so my eyes are going to be open. If you are watching the video, it's easier for me on video to kind of look past myself, but if I sometimes will look over here or I'll look other places because I'm seeing a vision or I'm seeing something. And also the last thing I'll say is my job is to share the messages with you. So if I see a bowl of oranges, I'm not going to then tell you that the bowl of oranges means that it's citrusy and you're going to be traveling to a citrus place like Florida. Like I don't know what the bowl of oranges means. It's for you to interpret that. Maybe your grandma put out a bowl of oranges every morning. You know what I'm saying? Maybe there's a message there. And if for some reason you don't know or it doesn't click, you can always say, hey, what else can they tell me about the bowl of oranges?
Yeah. Yep. Perfect. Okay. So I'm open-eyed as well?
It's up to you. Whatever you're comfortable with. I mean, the rules that I learned by is you sit with your feet on the ground and your eyes are open. I think you do what you're going to feel the most comfortable with. Okay. It's completely up to you.
Beautiful.
Okay.
Exciting. Okay.
Because you're going to know. You're going to be able to feel if you need to be in a different spot. That's what I trust. All right. And so we open ourselves to the light. And with this light, we open ourselves to our truth. And with this light, we open ourselves to our soul's purpose. And with this light, we open ourselves to be guided towards our highest good and the highest good of those we love. And so Jen is given the truth to best serve her on her healing journey into the love and acceptance that's most beneficial for her in this moment. And with this light and guidance, we unlock the energy field of Jen to receive the record of her soul. All right, your records are now open. And sometimes I'll see visions as I'm opening your records. And so just going to acknowledge that I did see snowflakes as I was opening your records. Specifically, like 2 or 3 snowflakes, very unique ones, very intricate. They weren't just like, snow from afar. Like I feel like I could see all the details on them. So I'm going to tune in and see what they want to share with you for opening remarks. Okay, so like the whole committee's here and they're like, welcome, woo, welcome. Like they're like really opening the doors and kind of like opening up a lot. And they're very grateful that you're here because they're sharing that your time here right now is very important and very timely. It sounds funny them saying that timely, but it's like very timely that you're here because there are certain frequencies and codes that are going to be delivered today in this connection that you're going to receive that are going to help open you up, and they're going to help you open up to channel. To help you to open up to channel even more information from your soul and even more guidance from your spirit guides. And so this energy frequency of the Akashic Records is really potent for you, and for you to tap in even more often, for you to be able to have this be encoded and coded around the work that you do, and having it being even more visible from your perspective. It doesn't feel like this has to be visible from others' perspectives, but visible from your perspective, like you having a very conscious connection into the records more often. And even like they're showing like you're coding your programs with the energy of the Akashic Records, you're coding the work that you do. It's like, I just am seeing like as if it's like this gold layering out of a path. I don't know, it is not a path, but like this gold foundation, that's a better word. Like this gold foundation in everything you do is the Akashic Records. And they're sharing that you really don't have far to go for this, because you already are, a lot of your work is, they want to say it this way, cohesive to the Akashic Records. But you're not always in the Akashic Records. So they're inviting you to be in the Akashic Records more often. Because you have like a soul mission that has to do with what you're doing, like the work that you're going to do in the Akashic Records. With the Akashic Records, there's a soul mission that's going to come out of that, but it will require you connecting more often. And as far as like, I don't know if mission's the right word. I'm just kind of like, I was running through some different words to match the energy. So I'm going to explain what mission, if that's not the right word. It's like just a blip of a thing, right? It's not like your whole purpose in life. It's like this little mini thing. So maybe it's a mission, but it's like a thing you're going to do like once, or, you know, like a couple of times. Also, they want to reflect back to you and let you know that this is interesting. Like you've tapped into like a love frequency, like a love potion frequency. And it's like, it's really activating you. Like I'm just seeing your body moving like in such a way, like you're just moving, and it's kind of as if, it reminds me of like a genie coming out of a bottle, or like a genie dancing, where it's just this like really flowy way, and it's been activated and it's been activated, and it's like it's being set free. It's being like let loose out of this. Yeah, they want me to stick with the bottle, like out of this bottle. It's being completely let loose and let free. They're like, don't bottle her back up. Like let her loose, let her loose, let her out. You know, it's interesting because there's like this tendency or this like desire to want to put the bottle somewhere safe so it doesn't break, so that the bottle's there if I need to go back in the bottle, or like put it in the closet or put it in a trunk or something, where like I have this bottle safe. And they're like, you don't need the bottle anymore. The bottle is completely unnecessary. Like you don't need that bottle. And they're like, plus you won't even fit in that bottle again. Like that bottle is completely too small for you. Like you need something very different. Okay, so now I'm hearing the word tribes. Let me see if there's anything else, because it's like I just heard tribes and then I'm not picking up on anything else at the moment. We're just going to put a pin in that. Maybe it'll circle back around in something else. I just heard tribes, so I'm going to honor that. Okay, so they're sharing a bit that your frequency and your abundance codes are being activated, and they're being leveled up and ramped up and opened up in such a way that the work with the Akashic Records will help to level that out. So it's like the energy that's coming with that. It's like it helps to ground you, with all of this bubbling up, and it helps to keep you true to yourself, which is something that's really important to you. Like you really desire to stay authentically true to who you are. And so it's interesting because like the energy of this like wealth and abundance, it's like there's a perception that this energy is going to pull you out of who you are if you hop on this energy and I'll hop on this frequency, but it's not even about that, because it's more about you grounding in. And that's why the Akashic Records is going to help you ground in, because then you can still tap into those frequency codes, but then kind of bring them over into your world and not kind of get carried away by them. Because it's interesting. There's two things they're sharing with this. One, feels like familiar people. I don't know if it's like family or friends, but you've watched some people get kind of swept away in these like abundance and wealth codes. And it's kind of like they're gone to you, even though they're still physically here. They're like gone in a way. And there's also this is tied to past life stuff too. So it's like there's experiences that you've had from all angles of this in past lives, like you being the one perceived, right, as like doing it wrong in a past life, of like blowing all your money and kind of like losing who you were. And then you've also been a part of a relationship where that person blew all their money and lost who they were. And then you've also been in this like parent-child relationship where that's happened. And it's like you've seen it from many different angles. And it's like there's just this desire at a soul level not to repeat that. And so by not wanting to repeat that, there's like it's keeping you from really aligning to those frequencies, because it's this fear that you're going to get swept away. And they're like, you know this. It feels like they just dropped this into you just the same time, kind of like you already know this and you know what you need to do. This is just like continuing to make the conscious decision that this life, this time is going to be different, and like detaching from any of the worries and fears that it could happen a different way. They're like, you're way too evolved. They're like, remember that bottle we said you outgrew? Like, you're way too evolved in your energy. You can't fit back in the bottle. And back in that bottle is where the energy was that would get attached and would float you out. It's like you're not in that. It's kind of irrelevant. They want you to know it's irrelevant. And they're like, with love, if you do find yourself getting attached in those frequencies, it's completely of your own doing. It's not because it was anything having to do with like soul, whatever. It's because you wanted to, at some level, to go get attached in that. And they're like, just as easily as you getting attached in it, you can completely detach yourself and come back down. And the way I'm seeing it is kind of like this balloon that goes out. And then like, this is interesting. Like the inner child you is kind of at the bottom, pulling the string back in. And you're like, I don't think so. Get your ass back here. Like, we're here. So it's very interesting. Yeah, this for now, this feels complete on opening remarks. So if you have any questions about that came through, or if you have another question that you want to ask, you can.
That was incredible. I've got no other questions. That was just amazing to receive that, and to just receive confirmation around so many things as well. Like, I love what you mentioned about, the love frequency, and you being in the bottle as well, not being able to go back into that bottle. And yeah, that was that really resonated for me. That was just incredible. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I love that. You know what's cool about this is that I do opening remarks in my readings, and sometimes the opening remarks are answering all the questions. I love how you're like, nope, I'm good. I don't have, and sometimes that does happen, you know? And any version of this is fine, but I've had one reading where the entire reading was opening remarks, and towards the end, she was like, I'm good. I got
That's
exactly
it.
what I needed. Yeah.
So is opening remarks generally just like the start of a reading?
Yes.
For like
I do
for
that.
standard size. Yeah. Wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
It really answers. Like, there's not a lot of questions that I have. Like, and it's not like I came in with a lot of questions either. I guess, like I said before, like, I'm very curious and just open to the mystery of life at the moment. But it's so nice to hear when things resonate, when it just makes sense as to why things are unfolding the way they are, and it's all that, just that trust in the divine timing of it all. So thank you so much. That was amazing.
You're welcome.
Jeni, you have been absolutely incredible to have on the show, and I feel like you and I could talk for hours. In fact, I'd love to have you on again at some stage to continue talking. I'd love to hear about the nomadic life, because that's also, I mean, you are the Akashic nomad. That is definitely a big part of your life as well, which we haven't had a chance to touch on. Before we wrap up, though, I do have one final question for you. Jeni, what is the meaning of life to you?
I think for me, on a human level, it's about being 100% me, being tapped into the truth of my soul, the truth of who I am, and really enjoying life and living life to the fullest. And more than just a cute saying on a shirt, like actually the embodiment of all of that. And for me, life has become even more so, how can I like embody even more of who I am while leaving my own judgments or attachments or fears or doubts or concerns of what other people think, and just kind of leaving that at the door. And that's at least the stage I'm in, and like practicing that, because life used to be about the same thing, but success. Money was always a driving factor. And now I'm starting to say, what else is here? What if it's just about being who I am and feeling who I am and showing up present as often as possible and being in this present moment.
I love that so much. Jeni Holla, thank you so much for being a guest on the Enlightened podcast.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me for this episode. I hope you love the Enlightened podcast, and the biggest compliment you can give me is subscribing to this podcast, sharing it, and leaving a rating and review. Feel free to follow me on Instagram. My handle is @JenHamiltonOfficial, and the podcast handle is enlightened_podcast. You can also find the video version on YouTube on my channel. Just search Enlightened, and don't forget to hit subscribe. Have a beautiful day and enjoy living the enlightened journey of life.